Okay, welcome back, viewers, past, present, future. I am Kevin Chaos. This is the Trustee Podcast. Back once again for another edition of the Bible study. This channel I have with me today Richard Madsen, Demolish Doctrine. We may have another guest stopping by. Thank you for coming, Richard.
Thanks for letting me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to speaking with you for a while, and I've been reading your take on the Bible, right? Do you want to tell people about that a little bit, or?
What I've done is essentially started from scratch, which is not the same as I don't have presuppositions. Of course I do. But the presupposition was that there can be no magic, and that if something makes sense in reality, oh, how interesting. I didn't even say where I was going. Good to see you. If something makes sense in reality and a piece of literature has some value, it has to be at least coherent within itself. So, given a reading frame in 2012, I've been applying it. It seems to work. In fact, it has predictive power because there are some words within King James, etc., that we weren't able to transliterate. We didn't know the definitions of the words, and we've discovered them since because we keep unearthing tablets, etc., etc. More scholars put into their translations, and we know the translations of some of these words. So a lot of those verifications were done, or at least a good handful of them were done by Dr. Joshua Bowen, where I said, if the context is correct, this word, this Hebrew word, it's written only in Hebrew. I don't read Hebrew. I would email him and say, does this word mean A? And he would verify it. So that's a good indicator you've got the correct context. So on Google Docs, I've started a document. I'm somewhere amidst Genesis right now, doing a translation that I think is coherent within itself and correspondent to reality. I'm calling it the Coherent Bible.
Excellent. I find it fascinating myself. So I've been reading through that a bit, but obviously, as you said, there are flaws, there are incongruencies that we know in the King James Bible, additions thereafter, and things like that. But nonetheless, it does seem to still be the most widely popular and widespread version of the text available in the English language, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which gives it no credit at all. Popularity is not consistency.
Yes, absolutely agree. So regarding the Old Testament, do you have maybe a different view? Like some people might say the Old Testament should be regarded as fable or mythology. Is that something coherent in your view?
Okay, so here's the overview. And I'm going to go through this way too quickly. Feel free to stop me at any point. Here's a basic overview. Part of the creation of God is mankind. Mankind is not finished or perfected, vivified, quickened, whichever word you like. That happens in heaven. Man is not perfected in heaven. God's creation of man is not complete until heaven. God rests from his creation, all of his creation, the seventh day. The seventh day begins in heaven. Okay? So when in talking about days of creation, the seventh day of creation is the perfection of man and or heaven. Now, obviously, you and I are here on the internet talking about this, so that has not happened. So God has not rested from has not taken his Sabbath, which is evident, following that simple line of logic. So then the 6 days of creation, we are still in the sixth day. Okay, the time of man on the earth, the sixth day. So all of the story of the Bible fits into the sixth day and does not include the seventh, except for the prophetic parts, which have not happened. That makes sense so far?
Yeah, I think I'm following you.
That's pretty easy, right? Okay.
Yes.
All right. What I think is universal, the only universal term I found that could describe all of these ancient stories And yes, they're very fairy tale like, and yes, they're stories. But there is a commonality I can find within all of these ancient stories. If I say something like they are cryptic, prophetic, animistic. So I'm saying cryptic, prophetic animism, using our natural surroundings and proclivities and normalcies to describe a situation we have not yet seen. That is, i.e., the transition into the seventh day. Okay. So that's why it seems to, on its face, argue with itself. So if I say something like homosexuality is wrong, right, an abomination, but then I say homosexuals can go to heaven later on, then it sounds like I'm arguing with myself, unless I'm only using sexuality to express something that we do understand and encounter in everyday life as a memory hook to explain something we do not encounter and do not know about. Okay, so I think that's what's being done there. And not that it's actually not condemning homosexuality per se. It's only using homosexuality as an example of something that is not average, something that is exclusive, if you will.
Do you think there's like a biological reason behind that? Like some may say that God wants more people to procreate, right? Homosexuality would obviously inhibit that behavior, and therefore, yes. Do you think
But
that
you could say
follows?
something like homosexuality limits suffering.
Yeah, well, that's obviously
evidently,
true,
right? That's just like, wow, as soon as you say it, it's true, right? If there's less babies being born that are starving to death, then there is less suffering of babies who starve to death for obvious reasons. So is it a problem? I don't know. Are you going for the highest possible populace with the greatest amount of suffering? Not to directly quote Sam Harris, but if that's what you're going for, it could be accomplished through having children as much as possible, everybody constantly. Forcing homosexual males to procreate with homosexual females, I suppose, the way that you might encourage that kind of behavior, that kind of situation. But I'm not sure it's the optimum situation.
Sorry, I had a thing blocking my feet there. No, and it's definitely not optimum for those who are born homosexual, right? That's clearly the case. You know, your tendency comes from your biology, and then maybe circumstances surrounding your upbringing and things like that. So where you gain these preferences from is not. It's clearly something that's inherent in the person, right? So it's not something that about themselves that could be construed as a flaw, which was the understanding, or at least the common understanding biblically, right?
Right. Like, well, traditionally, yes, but biblically, no. I'll agree with you'll say traditionally.
Okay.
If it's like, and I've heard homosexual, etc., friends of mine quote, "When did you choose to be cis white male? Like hetero cis white male. When did I choose that? Well, let me think. I didn't." Okay. And if you have, I don't know how many viewers you normally have of this conversation, but if you have a Christian friend who is condemning people for homosexuality, and they believe there is a God creator and that God did create all these people, ultimately, isn't that God responsible for their homosexuality? In which case, if they're responsible for it, why condemn it? I think it's an interesting thought. Okay. But the Bible actually speaks to the opposite. Because of that misunderstanding where they're taking examples as literal, it's addressed in Matthew 19:10 through 12. And because we've always had homosexual, etc., people in our societies, a society of any decent size, that's going to develop, that's going to happen, and has always been that way. So, of course, we have terms for things. We like terms for things. And there was a term for a thing in the ancient Near East, in Hebrew culture, for a person who was homosexual, etc. And the term was eunuch. You could say a man who's not a man, something like that. Okay, it's a little bit rude. It's insensitive. I'll grant you that. But you can understand why they would say a man who's not a man, that means homosexual, and why they would use the word eunuch that way.
So historically, I think, and I may be maybe a little off base, but I've done some research into this. So eunuch, I think, initially it comes from more ancient cultures, more tribal cultures, right? In which certain men in the service of their leaders were effectively castrated, or some type of sex change or degendering took place, sometimes by force, right? It wasn't always something that was agreed to, but it was done to children. And over the course of time, that was essentially like a way of, I guess, emasculating themselves to their leaders. So and effectively rendering themselves in service that way. And then there's more complex history of eunuchs sometimes actually being the concubines of these men. And there were, you may say homosexual relationships. There were definitely other extra relationships going on there. So there's a lot more to that, right? But eunuch could have also referred to, at least at that time, what we would call now a transgender person or a transvestite, right?
Yes. It's a pretty intuitive association. It's pretty easy to see why they would do that. Yeah. Yeah, and what a lot of people in modern Western society don't understand about a eunuch is that in those later societies that we refer to as the ancient Near East, it was actually a position of trust and honor, that eunuchs normally came from a well-established family from within the community. It wasn't like you were taking trashy people and doing this with them. They were not low on the status ladder as you might have.
And in certain cultures, you could
it's not
actually
insulting.
say that was an elevated status, right? I mean,
yes, a position of trust under a king or high priest, something like that. Yeah. So it's not a diminishing thing to call someone a eunuch. It's not an insult, It means they came from a good family, that they're trusted, and they have a position pretty darn high in society presently to call them a eunuch. So it's in no way diminishing like the Christian is using it today. I feel like I should speak.
Yeah, apologies if you have any more detail to go into there. I'm trying to share the stream and it's lagging me a little bit, so go for it.
Okay, well, I have a short, like a 3-minute thing I'd like to do on that. The 12 apostles ask of Christ, if a man is in the case of a woman, that means he's a man is like a woman, acts like a woman, etc. And we all know what that means. Is it good that he should marry? And of course, marry there would be traditional marry, like man marries woman, woman marries man, that kind of traditional thing. And they ask that of Jesus, and he doesn't answer the question. He goes to the greater question, because they don't really want to know should they marry, because that's not all that important. What they really want to know is, do they go to heaven? That's the greater question. And he replies with this saying is not for all, but only for those who would receive it. In my experimentation, I find that to be true. Sometimes I'll say this that I'm about to say, and people go, nuh-uh. Well, you're only saying that because you're not a homosexual and you don't have empathy for those who are. But when I ask a homosexual, they always agree with me. Some are born of the womb. That is not true of eunuchs. It's extremely unusual for someone to be born already castrated. I'm not saying it's impossible. I just think the chances of that are probably less than 1 in, say, 10 to 50,000 would be born already no testicles. Like, how do you even? That's not enough people. Some are born of the womb. Now, is that true of homosexuals, etc.? Ask them. They'll tell you it's true. But there's other categories. Some are made that way by others. Now, was that true of eunuchs? Eunuchs were not surgeons. Eunuchs did not perform castration. So no, it's not true of eunuchs, but is it true of homosexuals? Yes, they'll tell you that. There was this experience that guided me to know that this is my natural proclivity tendency. This is where I need to be. This is who I am. Others yet choose to be. Well, 8-year-old boys in the ancient Near East being volunteered up, that was not voluntary. They did not choose that. Their parents chose that. Maybe had a child specifically to dedicate to that sort of thing, but the child certainly didn't opt for that. Is it true in homosexuality, etc.? Yes, it is. Just ask them. I've never had someone argue, and I've asked more than a few people. So, could Jesus in Matthew 19:10-12 been talking about actual eunuchs? Well, no, it makes no sense. Could he have been talking about homosexuals? Well, almost definitely. I mean, you're going to have to stretch the meanings of those words and what's being said and say, well, Jesus was being colloquial or inaccurate or something, but he certainly couldn't have been serious. And the Christians still be able to keep their reading frame. It doesn't make any sense. And then he ends it with this: for the kingdom of God's sake, if one can receive, let them. Receive what? Receive the good news. That's the whole point. That is the good news of heaven, the good news of the upcoming judgment, the flood, the whole deal. So unless Jesus is being sarcastic and cruel, saying that you should tell the good news to those who can't go to heaven, and that's inconsistent within the character of Jesus, then I have to accept that they can go to heaven, which is what he's saying, apparently.
Excellent. Yeah, that sounds very rational. There is some maybe contention to the character of God and Jesus in the Bible, but again, everything taken in context historically and what was understood commonly, is very different from today. And we do have to take all those things into account when we're reading these types of things, right? So definitely makes sense.
They call it, the Christians recently are calling that a presentism fallacy, and I'm not certain that it applies elsewhere, but the term kind of makes sense to me. If I use the F-bomb today, it's not necessarily an offer of sexual engagement.
Yeah, the F-bomb can have pretty much any meaning at this point.
Right.
See, I stopped sharing my screen. I did finally get a share out on Facebook here, but it started lagging on me pretty bad. Just still a little bit of an issue here, but fortunately,
I'm not finding you lagging in my perception.
No, yeah, it's definitely something on my end of the stream. I just wanted to I wasn't spacing out on you there or anything.
I'm just saying your viewers are probably not objecting, or future viewers probably will not object, because it doesn't appear that you are lagging.
Gotcha. Okay. That's good to know. But I'm going to put this back up here so we can read it together. And again, this is, the King James translation. So we'll go with that. Maybe do a little reading of the Bible here, and we can also talk about maybe how your translation will differ from this one if we go that route. There it is. We're at BibleGateway.com. Thanks to BibleGateway.com. This is very accessible. When you search these things up, there's a lot of references and things over there for you, and different translations. This is not Bible Gateway has many multiple translations for you. So yeah, good resource in my opinion if you're looking for that type of thing. Okay, so where I left off here, I think Moses is still up on the mountain speaking, having it as his infamous conversation with Yahweh here. Then the Lord said unto Moses, Now shalt thou see what I will do to Pharaoh, for with a strong hand shall he let them go, and with a strong hand shall he drive them out of this land. And God spake unto Moses and said unto him, I am the Lord. And I appeared unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob by the name of God Almighty, but by my name Jehovah was I not known to them. What do you think about that, the translation of the name Jehovah? Is that something that's important to you, significant at all?
I think it's a nickname, from what I can understand. That the Hebrew people, the Jews, used some time ago, even finding it shortened to just Jah, which is short for Jehovah. So Jah is like almost a pet name, almost a term of endearment, if you will, but it's still considered sacred, and they used to decline saying it.
And Jah is generally from Rastafarianism, right? If I'm correct about that.
They adopted it. It's not from there.
Where do you know where its origins come from?
The ancient Jews.
Oh, okay, got you.
Of course, they would have said Yah, like a Y, not a J.
Right, or it would be more correctly pronounced Jehovah than Jehovah, right? So.
Right, yeah, that would be better, yeah.
Okay, see, we have Jesus is Lord in the chat. I did also invite him by, so maybe after we read a bit here, I don't know if you're open to that, Richard, but Jill might want to join the conversation with us. I'm not sure.
Jill's been reasonable with me personally in smaller talks, so I don't know how that would go. Might go great.
I would say it was definitely very, very rational. Last time he was here, it's not always a favorite of some of my viewers because we have a lot of the atheist community coming around here. So, it's a slippery slope there, but I don't like to censor people. I like to get multiple perspectives on these topics. So as long as it's within reason. Would you like to continue reading, Richard? We're at 4 here.
I'd like to go back up to 1 because I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think in compression, the Bible is very informationally dense, and we have a tendency to read it like it's a book because it is. But I think we make a lot of traditional presuppositional assumptions as we read. For instance, in the King James, where you see the word Lord, if you were to look that up, that's not going to be Jehovah, which is why it's not Jehovah, and nor is it going to be Yahweh. It's not going to be that either. But indeed, what the word Lord there is going to be is Elohim, which is interesting because the Jews had a word for a singular powerful being, and it wasn't Elohim. But Elohim is the plural form of a singular word, a word indicating singularity, which would have been Eloah. So when the Bible reads Lord in the King James, we should be reading that with the idea of a multiplicity of powerful beings. And if this multiplicity performs some act that, in context we can perceive as a goodly act, then it's angels. And if it's an evil act, then it would be referring to demons. Because part of the definition of Elohim is can mean malevolent, powerful beings. It doesn't identify. It's a more general term than that. So it's interesting that this is either angels or demons that are in this scene at 6:1.
And that could still be perceived as potentially paganism, right? We haven't received the commandments yet or anything like that. So
sure,
at this point, you could be talking about the notion of speaking to multiple gods or something like that, right?
Yes, you could.
Got you. Do you have any response for to godless sowing in the chat there, as far as a religion
First, peace
based
and respect.
on
I haven't
white
seen
people?
godless in a minute. Richard is completely wrong. With love, you're speaking on a religion based on white people who stole the mythology. It's interesting, godless sowing. What you're saying right there could be true, okay? But I want to describe to you why it's not true. I don't suffer from personal pride within Christianity, and I don't think the God of the earth told the story only once, okay? And if you were talking about anything aside from the Bible right now, you would never say confirmation defeats an idea. Just think about that for a second. Confirmation defeats an idea. No, sorry. When you find the same thing multiple places over time spans in different geographical locations, that's confirmation. It confirms the idea. And since I don't have a Christian pride problem, it's obvious and evident to me that because the story was told multiple times to multiple people, it's only reinforcing this story. It's not diminishing to it whatsoever.
All right. Well, that's interesting. We've got a couple more comments here with Jill's got a little response there. Well, answer question with a question, I suppose. Who stole theology before the white man stole it? Well, I think there's been different versions of theology. We can clearly track that. There were many various religions prior to the advent or what have you of Christianity or Judaism. Sure. Even so, I don't know. As far as I've been gaining a little bit more knowledge about ancient religions around the world, but I'm more keen to study what we have now, because these are very forceful in our societies now. So it wasn't always the case. There's a reason that the Catholic Church, as it were, under Christianity, unified and attempted to conquest places in the name of their religion, because they believe that most people should think as they do, right?
Well, that's what the word Catholic means. It means all inclusive, as in, an effort to include all. That's the root of the word, from what I understand. Yeah, I would never say something like Ice Cube stole from Under Pressure to do the song Ice Ice Baby or whatever.
Vanilla Ice. Yeah.
Vanilla Ice. That's who it was. You wouldn't say Vanilla Ice stole the music. No, it's an homage. It's a tribute. He adopted it because he thought it was great music. And so when the Bible takes from other sources and things that it finds to be true in reality, or in some way improving to society, or possibly even benevolent, that's not discrediting. That's wise.
All right. I mean, I can appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that perspective. All right. We'll move on a little bit here into verse 4. Excuse me. And I have also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their pilgrimage, wherein they were strangers. And I have also heard the groaning of the children of Israel, whom the Egyptians kept in bondage. And I have remembered my covenant. Wherefore say unto the children of Israel, I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. And I will rid you out of their bondage, and I will redeem you with a stretched out arm and with great judgments. So in my my African Heritage Study version, this is known as God's promised renewed. What do you think about that? The renewal of the covenant here. Any particular thoughts?
Yeah, I think that happens in the seventh day. That all of this is, again, it fits into the between the end of the sixth day is what this is talking about. And the new covenant is actually our invitation into heaven under grace instead of law, which we're still under law today. You can talk to people about it. People are lawyers. Even the Christians are lawyers, talking about, oh, you must do an A, B, and C and in the correct order and genuflect twice and do the hokey pokey. It's very legalistic. It really has nothing to do with legalism. But the covenant is renewed or established. The second covenant is our ascension. And I bring that from things like here, the word, if you look into the word Egypt right there, in the Hebrew language, that would have been limitation, not Egypt. So I brought you out of the land of limitation. Well, when does that happen? And the word Pharaoh there actually is not Pharaoh, but divider. So you were divided and limited. And that's true of us today. It's absolutely still true today in a perspective from heaven. Should I respond to God, or is it okay if I do? I'm going to go ahead because you're silent, or I'm not hearing you. Godless sowing. Your God and everything that follows doesn't exist. Wishing it to be true is nothing more than affirming an illness. My illness when I read the Bible personally, this is off topic a bit, but I'll answer to you. My illness when I read the Bible was anti-theism. That was my presupposition. So I didn't wish for it to be true. And I think you already know that because you probably know a good bit about me. We've spoken. I didn't wish for it to be true. This is not even a good straw man. And if you want to create a straw man of me, please put some accuracy in it so it's believable. Yes, Egypt is Kemet, but if you look into the actual Hebrew text, it doesn't use the word Egypt or Kemet. It literally reads limitation. I'm not kidding you. Go look it up. It's not talking about a place on the planet. It's talking about limitation as an idea. And I'm not wrong at all. You just haven't done the research yet. I want to give you the chance to react properly. You can keep saying I'm wrong, but you're just making it evident you haven't looked into these words. That's all you're doing. Seriously, bro.
Apologies. Hopefully we're back closer.
You are. I don't know if I was gone or not.
I'm not sure if I'm being heard or not.
I do hear you, but I think you can't hear me.
No, I could tell. I took down the link. I can hear you now, but it may be a time delay. I'm going to actually just back out of the stream real quick, and I will be right back. But you can go ahead and respond to comments if you'd like.
Okay. I already said it, but in case it skipped before, godless sowing, I would invite you to go and look into the definitions of the words that became translated into the King James, and even compare the textual variants. I've done this. It doesn't mean the Egyptian people. It doesn't mean Egypt. It doesn't mean Pharaoh. Those are modern ways of looking at the text. Yes, it got translated that way. I understand that. But just like Cushites or Cush means dark-skinned, it doesn't mean dark-skinned because they're black people. It means they're covered with ash. It means their skin is an unnatural color. It's not a natural skin color. And there's a lot of these misconceptions in them. And by the way, it's why you reject it, is because of these modern ways of looking at something that those people wouldn't have looked at that way.
I was actually musing on that a bit in my last stream. Am I better now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And there is a passage there that to me reads that this person, Moses, was in fact of a darker pigment. It doesn't specifically say, but what it describes when he reaches into the Lord's bosom as he comes out appearing leprous, which when you look at the translation of that, even if it were a light-skinned person, but however, not necessarily, what you would get would be like raised spots and splotches of lightened or pink or white skin, which is more common, I think, of darker skinned people, right? But I was also thinking, well, that's what would happen to almost any human being who had stuck their hand into a fire. You would get that patchy white skin and raised bumps and blisters from being burned as well. And it does describe he's speaking to a bush, and he reaches into the bosom of this bush, right? I don't know. I was having trouble figuring out what to make of that, but
I'd recommend going and looking back at the original words, which I haven't done on that section yet. So I can't speak to it intelligently right now. So I just haven't looked into those words, that particular part of the Bible right there.
got you. Yeah. No. Let me see. If I can get back.
It's not racist to say people are covered with sackcloth and ashes. That's not racism. Come on, godless. I don't know why you're angry with me. I'm not saying anything racist. And I'm not lying either.
Well, I mean that is the premise of the history of the book that I have is interpreted by many people. Not that some of these tales. Well, we can't even say these people really existed, but if they did, in the time and place that they should have existed, most people would have had darker skin, like commonly around the world, right? Like everybody, light skin developed later over time. And so in the context of these stories, it's important because Jesus and Moses are usually they are portrayed as being fair-skinned, blue-eyed men, and there's really no context for that.
Right, that's a presentism fallacy, and it's a European fallacy, yeah.
Let me see, it's not really that far back. Where was it here? Okay, well, no, I'm not finding it. Maybe it was further back.
Yeah, the people of the ancient Near East would not have been like Caucasus Mountain people. That's not who they were. And I would not contest that whatsoever, no matter whether the story shows them in a positive light or a negative light. They would have been darker skinned to medium skinned people, obviously.
So the passage I was referencing earlier, not super important anyway, so we've gone over this a little bit, but it's chapter 4, verse 6, and the note here says color significance and leprosy. And
I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing you. I think it's because of distance to microphone, maybe.
Oh, yeah, I can adjust that too. Is this better at all?
It is better, thank you.
Okay. The Lord said furthermore unto him, Put now thine hand into thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. And he said, Put thine hand into thy bosom again. Put his hand into his bosom again, and plucked out of his bosom, and behold, it was turned again as his other flesh. So that's the KJV version there. I don't know if there's other text or how that would translate from.
Just I don't know, but we could do that, but it would be interruptive to what your aim in having this podcast is, I think. But and I don't want to be interruptive. But if we just follow the line of logic you presented before, putting your hand into a fire resulting in blistering and whitening of the skin and etc. damage, makes perfect sense to me. To put your hand back into the fire and it be healed makes no sense.
Right, unless that fire is an embodiment of God, and that's the only way it would work.
Which I think we'd be talking about some kind of magic at that point.
Just for clarity, and I don't expect you to necessarily respond in the chat. Godless said he's not angry, but obviously there's some disagreement here. Are you a young Earth creationist though? Just
no, I'm not whatsoever. I think our scientific survey of the age of the planet is probably fairly accurate. I don't know what he's talking about.
I think they're just having a little fun with you.
Whatever.
No, you're cool. You're a cool guy, Richard. That's why I'm, really comfortable having this conversation here. May open it up in a few minutes if you want to, but I don't want anybody to come in here and start trash talking or creating a dumpster fire, because we're not going to have that. So we'll see how that goes and how much time we have, because I know you said you might be a little limited, and as am I, Richard. So.
Well, if you're limited, that's fine. I mistook noon in your writing as midnight.
Oh, sorry. No.
And I thought, yeah, I'll stay up till 1 or 2, but I'm not going to go much farther than that. I got to sleep sometime. But no, since it's in the middle of the day, it's on your schedule, sir.
Oh, cool. No, usually I stream later at night. It's preferable for whatever reason right now. But I wanted to make an exception for this one and have this conversation happen. And this is a better streaming time, really. Usually I get my late night videos end up getting viewed very early in the morning while I'm still having my nap. So this way we got a couple of live viewers, some people in the comment, and it's all fun. It's all good fun and good conversation. So I'll read here directly from my Bible.
To fill a little bit of dead air space, Godless, not to be inconsiderate or non-gracious to you, would you look up the difference between wrong and lying? Because, I mean, it's fine if you say I'm wrong, and I'll try to support my case. But when you say that I'm lying, you're saying I'm a bad person who's deceiving people on purpose, and I don't think that I'm deceiving people. I think I'm telling the truth. Now, I could be wrong. That's fine.
There is self-deception as well, right? I don't know. It's
sure, but that would still just be wrong. That wouldn't be lying.
All right. We'll continue on here. And I'll just read from my paper copy here, if I may, at verse 7. And I will take you to me for a people, and I will be to you a God, and ye shall know that I am the Lord your God, which bringeth you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will bring you in unto the land, concerning the which I did swear to give it to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, and I will give it to you for a heritage. I am the Lord. So he promised the land of Canaan to Abraham, which might be another issue of contention for some people along the racial divide, as has been expressed in this book. So some people interpret this to say that that those people of Abraham that were promised the land of Canaan were of African descent. Do you think do you have any thoughts about that? It was like specifically from Africa.
Yeah, I think that's true. I also understand that historically, if we were talking about this planet and that part of the planet, and that were the promised land, Canaan, that was controlled by Egypt. They would be escaping to some place where they're captured? That doesn't make any sense.
It does not, no.
Okay, so it makes no sense to escape to your captor. Well, people think that's what it says.
I think what they mean to say is that they should have been overthrown, right? Those empires, according to this covenant, should have completely collapsed. Which, I mean, historically, maybe you could say had happened, but that's only if you believe in ancient history beyond the biblical history, right? Like,
Of
so
course there is, yeah.
young Earth creationists, for example, would not be able to
Right.
acknowledge the history that actually affirms any of this story because it's written post hoc, right?
They would say yes. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, it literally makes no sense if a mass of Jews led by Yahweh were brought out of the land of the kingdom of Egypt only to go to Canaan, which was controlled by Egypt. However, if you look into those words and what they mean, then the story does make sense. That they were limited by a divider, and they were under the thumb of that divider, which is why they were slaves, and they were freed from that division. And you've got a bot, and I don't have control. That they were. Let me get back on track. They were limited and divided, and you always talk smack, but you won't host a show, Rebuke. They were limited and divided, and going to Canaan wouldn't help them. But where Canaan is described as the promised land should be interpreted as heaven, not a place on the planet. Because it's using real things and real geography to tell a story about a future event. That is animism. Again. Sorry, Kevin.
Oh, I see. You were talking to Jill there. Okay, gotcha. I was a little confused for a second. You're good. Bond, good to see you. Am I back?
I've been begging him for a third show for months now, and he won't schedule it and link me, but he will talk crap from the side chat. Of course, when he comes in a show, we have great conversation that actually goes places. I don't know what his problem is.
I think he enjoys it. Just again, a little locker room banter going on there.
That's
so
fine,
we had some words about that, about him coming on the first time, and I don't know if you are aware of my interaction with Darth Dawkins, which was
I am
as terrible as you can expect. Yeah.
Well, it's Darth Dawkins. He's got a script. He's going to stay to it, and he's gonna accuse you of everything when you won't play his game.
Yeah, he was actually relatively polite with me, but
yeah, well, he was mostly polite with me on Math Pig, but eventually I earned the title Deer in Headlights because I wouldn't let him play his game.
Yeah, I probably got something like that. I never heard the news, but I'm sure he's got some nice little, pet. That's what I said. There's some videos somewhere, atheist gets owned, all that good stuff. So,
of course,
I actually did attempt to play his game, but when I couldn't kind of get past some of his definitions, he wasn't really able to clarify or rephrase anything, and so we just kept butting heads there, and. Right. And he would not allow me to navigate anywhere else with the conversation, of course. So, yeah,
sure.
Big waste of time.
Yeah, if you're going to identify your God as the necessary consciousness that is benevolent, well, that's the beginnings of a definition, but that's no definition. Now you can make it apply to almost anything. You're being so non-specific that you can easily manipulate the conversation later. And I don't think that's an accident.
Yeah, I have theorized, and I don't have any evidence, it's just a theory, that he may be a wolf in sheep's clothing, in the sense that I think he may be an atheist in real life and uses his knowledge of philosophy just to kind of do this for kicks and go around and have his little cult worship thing going on, and maybe it's just a gimmick. I definitely still have reservations about that.
That reminds me of a South Park episode where the two main character boys get into a contest of who can become popular producing music faster. So Cartman goes with Christian music because that's gonna sell. So, but the problem is he never gets a gold record because they don't give away gold records in the Christian music industry. So he ends up losing, although he definitely accomplished the goal faster. So yeah, he could be doing something like that. We all want love and acceptance from other human beings. How you get it? Well,
yeah. What's the cure for boredom? All right. Well, we'll continue here because I know this is a Bible study, and but I really appreciate. I love the back and forth we're having here. So it's very fun for me. Thank you, man. And Moses, we're at chapter 6, verse 9. And Moses spake so unto the children of Israel, but they hearkened not unto Moses for anguish of spirit and for cruel bondage. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Go in, speak unto Pharaoh king of Egypt, that he let the children of Israel go out of his land, and before the Lord, saying, Behold, the children of Israel have not hearkened unto me. How then shall Pharaoh hear me, who am of uncircumcised lips? And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, and gave them a charge unto the children of Israel, and unto Pharaoh king of Egypt, to bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. Mm-hmm. So I kind of mentioned this before, and I knew this was coming, right? So there's this narrative where Moses has to keep going back to God, and God already knows, he's predetermined that the Pharaoh is not going to heed this message, but he continually sends Moses back to tell this, and eventually people stop believing him, right? Like, people are like, well, you told us this once, it didn't work, why should I believe you now? What do you make of that?
Well, first, I think it's a truism. The problem of suffering is a stumbling block to belief. So when it says, because of people's discomfort generally, I'm going to use the word discomfort. That's not what the text actually says. People won't accept. By golly, that's a fact. That's a fact today. To bring them out of the land that is of limitation and division from the perspective of heaven is to bring them into heaven. That is to take us out of the earth. So that's referring to ascension. So in that view, as a prophetic event, it's consistent within the text. I'll give it that. You're muted if you're speaking. Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, I was in between. They're saying goodbye to God the Son, and yeah, well, it as you say, it's consistent in the text, but there's definitely no rational logic behind it that we can think of.
Behind what? I'm kind of, I guess I'm verklempt right now. I don't get it.
Well, there's this. So the narrative goes that we know what's coming. God knows what's coming, right? I mean, he could avoid this whole back and forth of sending Moses back and forth to try and plead with the Pharaoh, because he knows it's not going to work, right? Where he's going to end up issuing plagues in order to convince him. So why doesn't he just do that? I guess is the question. I mean, obviously we can't know, but
I have a theory on that. So long as I don't conflate, and they can't be conflated and stay within classical logic, the terms Lucifer and Satan is a completely different entity that our God didn't even make. It just exists. And I think there's a lot of evidence for that, including that a quote from an archangel and or God calls Satan that old something. Wow. Well, something like that says old. What does it mean? Old compared to itself. So really ancient. This ancient serpent devil thing. And that it's not us at all. It's not a human being. And I think the reason that we are named Adam is we can turn red in the face like the red clay of the earth. That is, we have emotional states. We can be embarrassed or angered or exhausted, and our face turns red. And that's unusual for a mammal. I don't know of a second one on this planet that does it. So it's saying that Pharaoh, representing Satan in this scene, is without emotions. His heart is hardened to God. Like that's something that makes no sense to him. Like it would be like trying to explain love to a turtle, I suppose, something like that, or a really intelligent turtle.
I want to visit something you said there, which I'm grappling with here. So you said that Satan was not created by God; that he just exists. So is he, in your view, then like a demigod almost? Like he has the status of a god, but he's not as great as Yahweh, right? Is that kind of where you're going with that? So
I think God-like evil is situational and species specific. That there are other gods. Like to the demons, Satan is a god, and that's a genuine claim. Like they're not just saying that. Like he really is their God, but he's not for us. We're not for him. So he's not our God. And we should be at least tribal enough to say, my God who wants to benefit me is the one that I will worship. Something like that.
So would you say you ascribe to some maybe pagan or polytheistic beliefs then, in terms of your structure, the way you...
Yeah, I think the Bible is consistent with those beliefs. I don't think it's arguing whatsoever. I think it's only presentism in a Christian presupposition that makes there some kind of an argument there. I don't think there's an argument.
Excellent. Definitely agree there. All right. We're at 14, yeah? No, wait. Yeah, 14. Chapter 6, verse 14. These be the heads of their fathers' houses, the son of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, Hanok, and Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. These be the families of Reuben, and the sons of Simeon, Jemuel, and Janun, and Ohad, and Yakin, and Zohor, and Shaul, the son of a Canaanitish woman. These are the families of Simeon. Apologies, I'm terrible with reading the biblical names. I know this is probably just crushing it here. But these are the names of the sons of Levi according to their generations: Gershon, Kohath, Merari. The years of life of Levi were 137 years. The sons of Gershon, Libni, and Shimei according to their families, and the sons of Kohath, Amram, and Izhar, and Hebron, and Uziel. The years of the life of Kohath were 133 years. So since we're going through this, and I know I'm just terrible at reading these
That's okay, me too.
names, but what do you think of the narrative of people living to be over 100 years old or much older in the Bible? Is there do you think there's any truth to that? Is that part of the mythology? What do you think?
If you'll bother yourself to look up in the King James from the most original texts, the number 318. It appears only once in the King James. When you go back to the original words, it actually reads 311:18. But it says 100 specifically. So there's no such numeric as 311:18. Nope. So they shortened it to 318 because it made sense. But what they weren't considering is Hebrew numerology, where these numbers have assignments of idea sets. They're not just numbers. So 3 means referring to a trinity or a cooperative. 100 means selected by God. 11 means living in captivity. And 18 means freed through sacrifice. That little numerical sequence, although it's a little bit choppy and it's not very definitive because there's only 4 set there, there's only 4 ideas there, is a complete recollection in the Old Testament of the end times and ascension. That's what that number is. And when you start looking into these ages of people, those are the kinds of things they make sense. And it makes the sentence flow better as well. It's not so choppy as it turns out in the King James. So it doesn't read something and he died. Actually, lived so many years and he died. It actually reads vivified to perfection for, I don't know, Methuselah 960, I can't remember the exact number, years. And then he transitioned on to something else, is what it actually reads. So first of all, it's not talking about people living on this earth. It's talking about people perfected, which happens in heaven. It's not talking about people who helped write the religion. It's talking about people who accepted Christ and God and ascended into heaven. It's not talking about years as if it's talking about years on this planet. It's talking about ideas and their living conditions, their belief systems.
So not just a record of the living person, but in some sense maybe a spiritual record, maybe a chronology, some type of record of their effect on other people in a way, is what you're kind of like what they like. This plus this plus this is the final sum of this person.
I mean, yeah, there are hundreds of these in the Coherent Bible, in the recollections of generations, and I mean just one right after the other, and they all make perfect sense read that way. Whereas it wouldn't make sense read as the Christians. It's just extremely boring and meaningless, just a list of names of people and how long they lived and who their kids were. I mean, if that's what it is, it's pretty damn useless. It's not very spiritual.
Gotcha. All right. Well, it seems like we've got that. We're in agreement there on some things. There's maybe some points we could back and forth about, but we'll save that for another time because we're probably getting a little closer to the end of the show. We can go a little bit further though, as long as that's all right with you.
Oh yeah. As long as you can, I'll stay.
Excellent. At verse 19, the sons of Merari, Mahali, and Mushi. These are the families of Levi according to their generations. Sorry, so I guess I kind of stopped there in mid-sentence or mid-something. And Amram took him Jochebed and his father's sister to wife, and she bare him Aaron and Moses. And the years of the life of Amram were 137 years. And so while we're on this topic, I guess let's ask your opinion. I was talking to C.J. Cox, the synagogue, not long ago on this topic. What do you think about biblical marriage, particularly in the Old Testament, but also New Testament? And what is your general view on what the Bible prescribes for marriage?
It doesn't prescribe a damned thing. It doesn't approach the topic in any meaningful way as it would apply to our life here. For instance, when it says the father of Amram or whomever, and Amram marries his father's sister, which would be his aunt, right. Is talking about the Father in heaven and his Father in heaven's sister, and or it's going to sound a little funky in presentism that we are all called brothers and sisters to each other, including those in heaven, to the point that it goes all the way back to Adam and Eve. And you could say God and Goddess, and that wouldn't be unjust. And to say something like the Father's sister could be pretty much the same thing as the Father's cohort, compadre, wife, goddess. It could mean something like that. Now, I'm not saying I've looked into these particular words in this part of the text, but I see a lot of that kind of language throughout the Bible.
So, okay, that leads me to ask, do you see a gendering of the deity? Is there a reason for gendering the deity, or is that another kind of fault of a human error in translation there?
Okay. So because, oh my gosh, I think it's because of 7-year-olds playing on the playground saying my dad's bigger than yours. I think that's the issue. The Christian wants to say, no, my God's the real God and yours is fake, and these stories don't exist otherwise, and that whole thing, and I don't think that's at all true. Where let us make man in our image is a natural statement. That takes a male and a female, Adam and Eve, the first ones with red face, the first Homo sapiens in existence anywhere, have children. They have offspring. And it says they do in no uncertain terms. And that we are part of that lineage of offspring. We are descendants thereof. But then that means that they are male and female. And that makes perfect sense. And by the way, in the Old Testament, where it says that, it says Elohim, not Yahweh. It says group of powerful beings spoke.
Right. Which you differentiated.
So I think,
earlier.
there's so many misunderstandings in this. It's really a soup. It's awful.
So yeah, I will just state for clarity here. You stated, and I have as well. King James is not our favorite or necessarily the best version of the Bible. We're looking into it because it's the most popular version. It's the most widespread. Right. So that's But Richard, if you don't mind, I will. I know you don't have a wrench right now, and I'm not capable of giving you one without maybe having technical errors. But I could share your Coherent Bible if that's all right. Would you like me to do that? Or?
It would be an honor. Love to.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Absolutely. It should only take me a few seconds, and I'll continue reading while I'm waiting for that. At verse 21, chapter 6, verse 21. The sons of Izhar, Korah, and Nepheg, and Zechariah, and the sons of Uzziel, Mishael, and Elzaphan, and Zithrai. And Aaron took him Elisheba, daughter of Amminadab, sister of Nahshon, to wife, and she bare him Nadab, Abihu, and Eleazar, and Ithamar. If I'm correct, I think Eleazar is going to become a pertinent character later on.
Sounds familiar.
The sons of Korah, Asir, and Elkanah, and Ebiasaph. These are the families of the Korahites. And Eleazar's, Aaron's son, took him one of the daughters of Putiah, I'm pronouncing that like I'm French or something, I guess, to wife, and she bare him Phinehas. These are the heads of the fathers of the Levites according to their families. So back onto that topic a little bit, Richard. So you had said earlier there's this kind of a misinterpretation. What do you think is the purpose of the enumeration of these lineages? Is it simply record keeping? What's the significance of this in the biblical narrative? Because I know some people use it to establish really weird timelines for things like young Earth and other things like that.
They attempt to, don't they? Yeah. Okay. So Phinehas is a name I recognize from 1 Chronicles 6, 1 through 53. It means brassy in the mouth, like the mouth of a serpent. But the overall idea is not the brassiness of the mouth. The idea is a serpent or a snake. And Christians will often notice that these ancient names have alternative meanings. It's not a name, like it's not Fred. It's not Fred. It doesn't mean that. But there are actually parts of sentences. And I would give an example from 1 Chronicles 6, 1 through 53, which I don't remember if I've translated the part you're reading right now, but this part I definitely have, and I took notes. If I said there was a Hebrew name that means depopulate, And you go, well, okay, that's interesting. But then the next name means forcefully. And then the next name means Jah has risen. And then the next name means rebellious. Well, that's a sentence. To say the father of plenty, to depopulate forcefully, Jah has risen rebellious. Well, that's a complete idea. Now, are those names they just happen to be in the correct order? People were named arbitrarily and it just happens to make a story? That's not very likely. Especially in 6:1-53, which is literally 53 verses of it, which turns out to be about 4.5 pages in normal print size and page size. It's a continuous story. Those names do not, the English speaking ear is not hearing the story. And those names, if they were ever people, which I doubt, were all perfectly named in the correct order to the high point of their life, to add to the story, to give depth to the story in a continuous storyline. Start looking at the statistical likelihood of that, and I think I should refuse that those names are arbitrary. They're not.
There was definitely a lot there. I enjoy that your reasoning there. So that really kind of triggered my got my wheels spinning there. Forceful, risen, and rebellious. So that there's a narrative that this religion, Christianity, the God Yahweh, was an immediate response, a social response to a group of oppressed peoples, right? Who we know now as the Jewish people initially, right?
Right.
Well,
at least that's what's in this story. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe there's just a narrative that is added there. Is kind of where your logic would go with that.
No, that what the Christians are saying is not what the story's telling at all. There's not an additional narrative. They're completely missing the narrative. They're literally not reading what's written there.
I put a link down below. We got another robot. Cool. I'll add wrenches when I get back to this. It's just really difficult for me to do while I'm streaming. But there's a link there in the chat to read this as well. But I put up your preface here. Another comment from Rebuke and Reprove. Richard's false Bible. Thomas Jefferson tried to write his own Bible as well. Thank God he in a way could not have thought that preserved his word over time. I'm not sure what Jill means by that.
It's almost English. It's very close to English. Let's just try to go with it.
Do you have any response to that, Richard?
Yes, learn English, Jill. That's my response to that. I have no idea what he's trying to say. I mean, I could guess.
Yeah, I'm very confused by that. I do like Jefferson's Bible, at least what I've read of it. I think the concept of it is good, but it definitely is antithetical to any coherent Christian worldview, right? So
Oh, definitely. I think what Jefferson was attempting to do is take the superstition out of the Bible. That's fine. But what he doesn't understand, or what he did not understand, or what he could have corrected, is that the Bible contains no magic. For instance, if you'll go with me for just a minute, if I say that people in large crowds act a bit like water, sometimes they make turbulence, sometimes there's waves, sometimes there's repeating patterns, in other places there's not. I mean, watch rush hour on a sidewalk in New York City pre-COVID, and you'll see humans doing all of those things to the point that they look like a stream of water from some distance above. That we really do look like water. And in fact, if you take pilot's lessons, you'll be warned not to crash into lakes and rivers that are close to stadiums, because people leaving a stadium look like a pond from the air. And aside from those realistic observations, the book of Revelation refers to us as waters. So when it says are, not like or similar to or anything, that am, as, are, was, were, be, being, been, a definite identity correlated between two. These that you have seen, these waters that you have seen, are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. So he's giving the usage definition in the book of Revelation for what waters means. Now that we have a definition, I'm sorry it's inconvenient, it's the end of the story, but it's there. It's the only one given. There is no other definition given as how it's being used. And we bring that back through the rest of the work. Let's say it's a decoder key. When I say Jesus walked on the waters, it's not a defeat of physics, and Jefferson didn't have to remove that. It means he's a natural leader over the people, dependent on them. They support Jesus. Is it true in reality that people in large groups support Jesus? Do I even have to ask the damned question? Is it true that, at least in their opinion, that he is over top of them and that they should support him and that they do elevate him? Are these things to be debated? So does Jesus walk on the waters? Evidently, there are Christians.
Okay, yeah, I'm not going to entertain Jill's comment there, although I understand the narrative, but yeah, that's fine. That's, one belief versus another. There's definitely debate to be had about archaeological evidence, but I would say Richard's Bible is not the same as Jefferson's Bible. Whether you think they're false or not is a completely different story. But yeah, I appreciate that explanation there. And we got just a few more verses left of chapter 6, just working our way down slowly because there's really just so much more interesting stuff to talk about. But this is also an interesting story. Although, as you said, there's just a lot packed in here, just so much in the text. Whether it be KJV or any other version of the Bible, it's still just a thick read. So, 26, chapter 6, verse 26. These are that Aaron and Moses, to whom the Lord said, bring out the children of Israel from the land of Egypt according to their armies. These are they which spake to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to bring out the children of Israel from Egypt. So this is the group that came to him. That was Moses and Aaron, brothers, right? And it came to pass on the day when the Lord spake unto Moses in the land of Egypt, that the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, I am the Lord. Speak thou unto Pharaoh, king of Egypt, all that I say unto thee. And Moses said before the Lord, behold, I am of uncircumcised lips, and how shall Pharaoh hearken to me? So at this point, I guess Moses is still not circumcised. I think his son was circumcised earlier in the chapter, or earlier in Exodus, rather. But there's a lot of emphasis placed here now again on circumcision. What do you think about that, Richard? Any thoughts on circumcision?
I think the way Christians take circumcision, or the way the Jews did as well, and also the rite of baptism, it's an outward sign of an inward situation. And cutting off genital mutilation is not the point. But the point is to be contrite and be correctable, and then when learning new truths, be corrected. That's the circumcision that matters according to the text. So when they're using, again, animism to describe a spiritual thing that you don't have experience of, it makes sense that we would need that kind of a thing, but there's no reason to mutilate someone's genitals.
Do you find, and I want to reference this as we go ahead here, because I think we'll finish the reading. Other than, okay, so do you find any something strange, maybe something a bit more psychological, pertinent to humans, that there is some connection between the the male human genitalia, the fascination with it, and also this repeated reference to snakes or serpents. Obviously, you said that Satan is a serpent, and it's there seems to be some subtext there as far as male genitalia and serpents. What do you think of anything about that?
Wow, I think that the Catholics have done a lot to promote that idea. Of course, guilt is that's their paycheck is guilt. Um, are we fascinated by our own genitalia? Yeah, that's a given. I mean, there are. If God didn't want me to do that, why did He put so many pleasure nerves there? Um, yeah, we're aware of that, and you can't get better physical sensation on average than you can from, say, some kind of sexual pleasuring. Of course. Is there something wrong with that? No, of course not. Um, can we bring it into the idea of the serpent or the snake or guilt or self-loathing or body shaming or something like that? I think a lot of Christianity has. I think it's misguided.
Excellent, excellent. So I'll just read the annotation here. It's coming up in the next chapter, which will be featured on the next Bible study. And you're welcome back, Richard, if you'd like to join. Probably this time next week, if that works for everyone. Seemed to work out today. So this note here is going to go into chapter 7, and I've addressed this before. So initially, when Moses is speaking to Yahweh, he tells him to throw his wand, and the stick turns into a snake, and then back into a stick. This is supposed to be one of his, I say with love, but it's a parlor trick, it sounds like to me. Here it says, the rod of Moses was turned into a living snake to show the powerful divinity of God through nature. The snake has become a part of various African cultures. In Haiti, the highest god in the Haitian pantheon is Dambala Wuro, I think it's pronounced that way, Tokan Frida Dahomey, and he is identified as Moses, the serpent god. But this deity did not originate in Haiti. It's home in Dahomey, or West Africa, and it is worshipped there extensively. In every temple of Dambala, there is a living snake, or the symbolic equivalent. And once again, we see the West African to Hebrew connection. Any thoughts on that?
Wow, there's so many problems there. Okay. In English, and only in English, and no other language on the planet ever, the word son, S-O-N, sounds very similar to the word sun, S-U-N. To make associations like that over people groups and through languages, it's not only clumsy and irresponsible, it's poorly researched. So yeah, there's something that sounds the same. Congratulations. I don't even know why someone would assert that seriously in the first place. The second thing, if you look into the word staff in the Bible, it doesn't mean a walking stick at all. It means internal fortitude, that which holds you up like a staff. Okay? So to say throw down your staff is like give up your internal strength. To say I gave up my internal strength and it became a serpent is a no-brainer. If you lost your faith system in what was true in reality, and your perception of reality became this slithering, slimy, you can't trust it, nasty thing that was vicious. Well, gosh, I mean, do I need to finish the idea?
Interesting thought. So you're not taking any literal interpretation of that story then. This is all just a spiritual journey as far as what Moses has embarked upon here.
Sure. I mean, I don't think it's describing magic. I think it's describing the human condition and intervention by other living beings, and what our actual reactions really would be.
Excellent, excellent. Well, this is a great conversation. Coming up on an hour and a half. I think we can wrap up here if you're comfortable with that, Richard. And yeah, definitely, as I said, next Friday, we'll probably do this again. If you'd like to come by, anybody else in the chat, we might make it an open room as long as everybody can stay respectful. But I don't
I
want to have too
apologize
much.
that I'm scheduled for work next Friday at this time.
Oh, no problem.
If you
No
wanted,
problem.
if you wanted to change it 4 hours into the future, I would be more than blessed to attend. I would be humbled, actually.
I'll see what I can do. That may or may not be possible. We'll see. But in the meantime, do you have any shills or any type of anything you'd like to say in closing, Richard?
Well, you've linked the Coherent Bible to the Christian. It is an offense what I'm doing with the Bible, and they're offended because I'm saying that it's correspondent in reality, contains no supernatural anything or any kind of a magic, and that is a presupposition of Christians that the Jews didn't hold and we shouldn't, even into the New Testament. It's just not claiming those things. And as soon as one let go of the idea that it has to contain magic, there is some truths and observations about the human condition that come out in the text that are revelatory to some, confirming to others in their lives, but definitely progressive ideas about what it is to be a human being is contained within the Bible. And it's just really good life advice in some places. I really recommend taking a look at it from that perspective, because, and Jordan Peterson's touched on this a little bit accidentally, but he has stumbled across some of what is correct reading frame. Let me give a short example, although Jordan Peterson stops short of the full story. And he saw it without knowing these Hebrew words. I saw it because of looking up the Hebrew words. The story of Cain and Abel. Cain means transition, and Abel means worldliness or vanity. So it's materialism versus immaterialism, and how to change is what the story of Cain and Abel is. So Cain ventures out once he sees this. He ventures out into a wilderness. That's someplace you haven't been, and it might just kill you. And he wrestles with, fights with, and kills and overcomes his own vanity. That is a description of dualism. That's the struggle with dualism. And in like way, the word Israel means to struggle with God. That's what Israel means. The people of Israel are those that struggle with God. And I could go on forever, but it's not what the Christians have told you, and it's not supernatural. I'm sorry.
That was excellent. Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate it, and I love your perspective, and really enjoy having a conversation with you. So I hope we can do it again soon. I'll announce the next when I figure out my stuff. Thank you very much for coming by, Richard. Everybody in the chat, we got rebuke and reprove. I speak English, also known as Jesus is Lord. Again, a little chiding there, but thank you for being respectful and sharing your views as well. Godless Sowing, Cryptomeria, Bond, anybody who may be viewing past, present, or future. I've got we've got 69 subscribers now, maybe another one. I haven't looked recently. So very excited about the growth of the channel, and big thank you to everyone you see in the bottom in the ticker, if you can see that. JD, Godless Granny, Dara, John Peterson, Secular Pagan Mom, Travis Pangburn, Cryptomeria, The Raging Atheist, Titan Ernest have all been tremendous help to me, as well as you, Richard, Math Pig, a lot of other people I could name there, but just thank you so much for coming, and yeah, great show. We'll see you next time, everybody. Hitting the button.